Ask them the hard questions. Hey, what companies do you represent? What are the common challenges you see for investors like me and if they're not asking you open-ended questions, if they're not coming to you and saying, hey, what are you into? Tell me about the problems in your operation. What are the pain points? What do you hate about insurance? Where do you feel like you've been screwed before? Like, a good agent is going to come to you with open-ended questions to get to understand you and your operation and what you're up to.
If I go to an event and there's two insurance companies and I'm not an insurance guy, how do I know that James is better than Steven or Steven is better than James or Sarah's in there or whatever?
Well, it's just like anything else. When you're picking a vendor, you want to make sure that whoever it is you're talking to, whether it's RiskWell or somebody else, and there's plenty of good agents out there, you want to make sure that whoever you're talking to is a legitimate, seasoned expert for real estate investors. And not just the super basic mom and pop, oh, I have a rent house. But, I mean, if you're into flipping, make sure that the agent you pick is into flipping. Like, they have the right markets. They have the relationships with underwriters. They understand the policies. They know what's covered and what's not covered. And they can educate and empower you to make a smart decision. Because if you pick Joe Blow insurance agent and say, hey, can I get a quote? What are they going to tell you? Sure, let me get you a quote. Are they going to volunteer? Oh, yeah, by the way, I don't actually know how to write small multifamily. Or, oh, yeah, you're buying a self-storage unit? Sure, let me get right on that. Meanwhile, they're Googling self-storage unit insurance so they can understand the questions they're supposed to ask you because they've never done one before. Are they going to volunteer that to you? No, they're not. So, like, putting the grill to these people that you're considering working with.
But what does that mean to put I understand.
Ask them the hard questions. Hey, what companies do you represent? What are the common challenges you see for investors like me and if they're not asking you open-ended questions, if they're not coming to you and saying, hey, what are you into? Tell me about the problems in your operation. What are the pain points? What do you hate about insurance? Where do you feel like you've been screwed before? Like, a good agent is going to come to you with open-ended questions to get to understand you and your operation and what you're up to. And if all they're asking is the questions on the insurance application, what's the name of your company? What's the property address? What year was it built? What's the square footage? It's like, come on, that's chump change.
Ron, the problem is it's retraining yourself to ask the right questions. As a lender, we face it all the time. The first question anyone ever asks me is, can you guess?
What's the rate?
What's the rate? Well, I mean, don't you want to know, like, what I can do for you? Don't you want to know if I close on time? Don't you want to know, like, am I a loan-to-own shop? Don't you want to know if I'm going to retrade you the day of closing? Like, what about all these other really important things? First thing I ask an agent is, like, what's the claims process?
Yep.
Because no matter what, I've got to pay a bunch of money, but when I need it, I need it. And there's a lot of groups in the real estate investing space that may have really low rates, and that is great until you have a really big need and you find out that the low rate was indicative of the low performance.